Good afternoon, beautiful people. You don't commonly think about this, but I think there's a strong link between science and philosophy, particularly in the field of ethics, or the systems of morality. When is science is moral, and when we are pushing it too far? As we, Group 4, discuss the field of bioethics, let us all answer the questions in our minds.
Good evening everyone. Ano nga ba ang bioethics? Bioethics from the Greek words bios, which means life, and then ethos, which means customs. Then ethics, though, is the branch of philosophy that studies the rightness or wrongness of human actions. On the other hand, bioethics is the applications of the principles of ethics to the field of medicine and healthcare. Broadly construed, that bioethics as applied ethics is defined as the ethics of life. It is also concerned with the ethical issues that arise from the emergence and development of the life of sciences such as biotechnology and medicines. Para sa field ng bioethics guys, ito yung mga examples ng decisions making na kailangan. Isa dito ay walang katapusan ng abortions, euthanasia, familiar na tayo yan, suicide, human cloning, allocation of healthcare resources, genetic engineering, artificial insemination, contraception, and transplantations, and thus organ donations. So sa organ donations, sabi ako ng ng kwenta lang. Bali, yung napanood ko kasi, meron isang doctor na kailangan niya mag-decide kung sino sa tatlo yung gagamitan niya ng heart. Kasi yung may isa siyang pasyente na mamamatay na and then gusto niya mag-donate, gusto niya i-donate yung puso niya. Esaktong yun yung pinangangailangan ng tatlong pasyente. Bale, mag-decide siya sa ating 12-year-old na batang babae, sa isang 40-year-old na single mom, tapos sa isang 75 na lolo. Bali, sobrang hirap ng desisyon. Tapos, ang pinakantong yung batang babae, yung dinonate na ng puso. Sabi rin dito ni Dr. Melissa McCrae, in medicine, we often have situation where there is no right answer. There are different values at play between the clinical term, parents, patients, and society. Sabi niya parang he was really drawn to bioethics because it combines science, medicine, law, and philosophy with the goal of helping people through some of the most difficult situations.
Importance of bioethics. Bioethics may display a great importance. Firstly, when we're talking about medical field, bioethics may help us in terms of guides and outlining and narrow down complex details or information. Secondly, knowing the value of bioethics will help us only with expanding medical knowledge, but to also help us improve our decision making. Bioethics will make us advance in many terms, which is why bioethics present vital roles for us.
Importance. Health professionals' understanding of the medical practice and their capacity to better comprehend the patient as a person were both enhanced by the application of bioethics in healthcare. According to Roberts 2012, health professionals can adhere to an ethical code when working with patients, which was earlier an issue, emphasizing the moral aspect of bioethics. Bioethics plays a crucial role in healthcare because it helps professionals come up with a decision that will prevent having a moral dilemma in the workplace. It also gives the patient a better knowledge of which act is right and wrong based on medical ethics. Next, practical issues resulting from the medical and non-medical life sciences that have an impact on public policy as well as the direction and management of science are addressed by bioethics. It is vital for those aspects as its role is to minimize ethical concerns when it comes to biology and moral dilemmas in the workplace. There is a need for ethical standards in medical and non-medical life sciences, including the 4 basic principles: transparency, the accuracy of the information, respect for privacy and confidentiality, and non-discrimination or equal treatment. Lastly, by applying ethical principles to the practice of medicine, bioethics aims to understand and investigate the process of making medical judgments. It is crucial to guarantee that medical practices and procedures benefit society as a whole. It is vital to understand that bioethics does not support a specific moral position or provide clear, conclusive solutions, but rather seeks a grounded, critical, and argumentative reflection centered on the uniqueness of a particular circumstances.
Good day everyone, I am Junette Vizcaya from Group 4 Bioethics. Now we will talk about the examples and challenges of bioethics. First is abortion. Abortion is the intentional expulsion of a fetus which cannot survive by itself outside of the womb of the mother. In some countries, abortion is considered a legitimate means of regulating the size of the family or of that population. In some of these countries, it is not only legalized by it, but encouraged by subsidizing it. However, it considers abortion a crime. Ethicists and theologians distinguish between indirect and direct abortion. Number 1 is indirect or therapeutic abortion, is that which is performed of the purpose of saving the life of the mother. It is regarded as morally permissible. The case, however, it is that does not imply the mother's life is referred over the child. The truth is that between a life that can be saved and a life that cannot be saved, the moral dilemma is whether to live and die or save mother. Number 2 is direct or selective abortion. It's the expulsion of a fetus by the willful wishes of the parents for purposes other than saving the life of the mother. Thus, abortion is a sturdy means of limiting the number of children as a political measure to control population growth or simply as a means of eliminating an unwanted baby for social and economic reasons. Therefore, the word abortion is immoral because it violates the world right of the child to live. Next is cloning. Cloning is a technique scientists use to make exact genetic copies of living things. Usually, cloning is discussed ethically in terms of the genetic duplications of a whole organism, although non-mammals have been cloned for research purposes for many years. Cloning of other species quickly followed, as did considerable speculation about the possibility of cloning humans. Although cloned humans embryos have been created, there are no confirmed instances of any of them being inserted into a woman's uterus or growing into a developing fetus. Reproductive cloning is now referred to as such, whereas therapeutic cloning is the process of creating embryos from which stem cells can be extracted for use in research or therapy. The moral standing of the cloned embryo, which was made just to destroy, is the main ethical concern with therapeutic cloning. Genetic harm to clone, heart risk, or another, a low success rate that result in the loss of many embryos and fetuses. Psychological harm to the clone, complicated, altered familiar relationships, and the commodifications of human life are some of the ethical concerns with reproductive cloning.
The third examples and challenges of bioethics is surrogacy. So what is surrogacy means? Surrogacy refers to the process of assisting the reproduction of parents who are incapable of doing so. Most of the time, surrogacy is carried out by women known as gestational women or gestational surrogate who carry the child in their womb. So the bioethical concern here is the confusion in the identity of the child, whether or not his biological parents are considered his true parents. Of course, magkakaroon ng confusion ng bata kung sino nga ba ang totoo niyang mga magulang, yung nagluwal ba sa kanya or yung mismong pinaggalingan ng sperm and egg kung kaya siya nabuo. Example na lang here is yung drama ng Blood Sisters, which is si Miss Cherry Pie, hinar siya na mag-asawa bilang isang surrogate mother to carry their fertilized eggs in her womb. Last but not the least is organ donation. Organ donation refers to the process of surgically removing an organ or tissue from one person, which is the organ donor, and placing it into another person, which is the recipient. The first bioethical concern on organ donation is that there is a big shortage of organs for those who need it. There are thousands of people on the waiting list to receive the organ transplants either from living or deceased. And another biggest ethical concern is that as there is a big demand for organ transplants, there is a fear of illegal organ stealing from livings, also called human trafficking without their consent, to create organ farming to sell body parts for big prices.
The principles of bioethics. Ethical choices, both minor and major, confront us every day in the provision of healthcare for people with diverse values living in a multicultural society. In the face of such diversity, guidelines would need to be broadly acceptable among the religious and non-religious people across many different cultures. Due to many variables that exist in the context of clinical cases, as well as in the fact that in healthcare there are several ethical principles that seem to be applicable in many situations, these principles are not considered absolutes, but serve as the powerful action guides in clinical medicine.
So what is autonomy? Autonomy, from the Greek words autos means self and nomos means rule, governance, or law. It says autonomy is the rights of every person to have control over their lives and decisions regarding their care. So dito sa autonomy guys, nagkakaroon tayo ng karapatan upang mag-decide kung ano yung gusto nating gawin pag nasa hospital tayo. And then, it is the basis of informed consent which has become a core concept of modern medical practice. So bago tayo mag-undergo sa mga anumang treatment sa atin, kailangan muna ng consent ni patient para magpatuloy sa trabaho si doctor. And then, sabi dito, autonomy means that only the patient knows what is the best for him, and only he or she has the right to decide in order to do he or she needs to receive from the physicians all the appropriate information about his condition and to permit him to make an informed decision. Ayan, yun nga, pag kailangan magbigay muna tayo ng consent kay patient bago mag-undergo ng mga ganong procedures. Sabi din dito, autonomy, when we allow patients, when we respect patients' capacity, they will be making decisions whether they agree in medical interventions or they don't want to agree or refuse on any medical interventions. So, ayan nga, kahit gusto natin na ganito gawin natin, if ayaw ng pasyente, wala tayong magagawa doon. Yun yung pinaka-rule ng autonomy. Tapos, may mga issues din kasi patungkol dito sa autonomy. Isang halimbawa nito ay ang abortion. Ang abortions. Kasi halimbawa, if gusto ng mother na i-abort yung kanyang anak, edi tayong doctor, halimbawa, susundin lang natin yung gusto niya na i-abort natin yung gusto niya. Pero yun nga, sa rule din ng ethics, at halimbawa nga yung principle ng bioethics, which is yung non-malignant, ang sabi doon, do no harm. So parang nilalabag natin yung kasabihan doon na do no harm na sa autonomy, kasi sa abortion parang yun nga, pinapatay natin yung unborn babies. Yun yung parang issue doon. Tapos isa pa sa issue dito is yung paano pag halimbawa may isang napilayan na pasyente and then wala siyang pampagamot. Ang gusto mong gawin bilang isang doktor ay ipa-CT scan or pa-x-ray yung napilayan niyang paa, ganun, tuhod, para malaman kung ano yung gagawin. Wala siyang pambayan. Ang gusto niyang gawin ay ipahilot na lang yun. Dahil yun yung gusto niya, gusto din natin bilang isang doktor yun. Pero sa pinaka natin, kumbaga rule, hindi yun katanggap-tanggap kasi baka kung ano mapano pa yung patient. Yun lang.
The next principle that we'll be discussing is beneficence. What is beneficence? Beneficence is defined as kindness and charity which requires action on the part of the nurse to benefit others. An example of a nurse demonstrating this ethical principle is by holding a dying patient's hand. It's a moral obligation to act for the benefits of others. Why beneficence is important? It is important because it ensures that the healthcare professional considers individual circumstances and remember that what is good for one patient may not necessarily be great for another. How does beneficence affect end life of a life care? Beneficence reflect that the counselor's responsibility to contribute to the welfare of the client. Simply stated, it means to do good, to be proactive, and also to prevent harm when possible.
Good morning, Sir Atan. Good morning, classmates. This is my report for the non-maleficence. It is one of the principles of bioethics. Non-maleficence requires that a procedure not be harmful to the patient or others in the society. Infertility specialists work under the assumption that they are causing no harm or causing as little harm as possible by pursuing the greater good. However, due to assistive reproductive technologies, have low success rates and uncertain overall outcomes, and the patient's emotional state may suffer as a result. In some cases, doctors struggle to apply the do no harm principle successfully. According to the principle of non-maleficence, there is an obligation not to cause harm to others. It is closely related to the maximum primum nocere, also called first do no harm. Non-maleficence is the sister of beneficence, and it's also one of the principles of bioethics. An example of non-maleficence is stopping a medication if it's known to be harmful to a patient, or refusing to give a medication if it's not been proven to be effective.
Next, we have justice. When we hear the word justice, we can interpret it as fair, equitable, and appropriate treatment of people. Just like Aristotle once said, giving to each that which is his due. It is generally held that people should qualify for equal treatment. Distribution of healthcare resources determined by justified norms that structure the terms of social cooperation. But how can this be accomplished? Well, our society uses a variety of factors as criteria for distributive justice. The first one is to each person an equal share. Next is to each person according to need. Also according to effort. Next is according to contribution. Of course, according to merit. And lastly, to each person according to free market exchanges. Each principle is not exclusive and can be and are often combined in application. It is easy to see that difficulty in choosing, balancing, and refining these principles to form a coherent and workable solution to distribute medical resources. Examples of distributive justice encountered in hospital practice is the allotment of scarce resources such as equipment, tests, medications, organ transplant, care of uninsured patients, and allotment of time for outpatient visits. Is there an equal time for every patient? Is it based on need or complexity? Does it based on your social or economic status? Difficult as it may be, and despite many constraining forces, physicians must accept the requirement of fairness contained in this principle. Fairness to the patient assumed as a role of primary importance when there are conflicts of interest. A flagrant example of violation of this principle would be when a particular option of treatment is chosen over others. or an expensive drug is chosen over an equally effective but less expensive one because it benefits the physician financially. According to Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA approved generic medicines work in the same way and provide the same clinical benefit and risk as their brand name counterparts. Because it is required to be the same as the brand name medicine in the dosage, safety, effectiveness, strength, stability, and quality, as well as in the way it is taken. On behalf of my groupmates, thank you, and I hope you all learn and enjoy our presentation. This has been Group 4, signing off. But wait, there's more! We prepared a game that we request your participation and stock knowledge. Let's brace ourselves as we enter the dungeon of the Lost Castle. A wish of luck to all of you.